Hi, it's Sue. Welcome back to my channel today. Yes, I found a box full of bits of fabric. These are pieces left over from quilted projects. There's all sorts in here. But one of the things I found was a little plastic bag with 2.5-inch squares in. I mean, there's all sorts. I used to keep, always kept all my scraps because you never know. I mean, you can use them for all sorts. Applique, pom-poms, Suffolk puffs, that kind of thing. But yeah, there's quite a lot of fabric in there. So I thought what I would use some of the 2.5-inch strips or squares. They were already cut into squares, and join them together with a mind to make a patchwork cover for my next journal. And as my everyday journal's getting a bit chunky, I thought, well, it was a good opportunity to get on and do something a bit different. So I thought I'd share with you. It's not the sort of thing, you know, that I can do along the way. You know, film while I'm doing. I mean, it would be deadly dull for you to sit and watch me at the sewing machine. But I thought I'd explain to you how I've gone about this. And for quilters, this is going to be deadly dull because you know the story. But for any of you who admire the quilted covered journals and have never attempted one, this is for you. So, I mean, I'm using scraps, but you literally could just buy 20 centimetres, say, of fabric, which would give you, most shops sell, you might even get 10 centimetres, and 10 centimetres would give you at least one 2.5-inch strip. And you could literally, from 3 strips, you could have, say, if you were working in a block like this, which is, if you can see what I'm saying here, what you could do is have 5 light fabrics and either 4 dark fabrics, or you could keep these 4 the same, or you could keep these the same. You know, there's lots of ways of doing it. But if, like me, you've got scraps of fabric, use up your scraps because, you know, it doesn't take a lot to make up a nice block. And the only thing I would say, if you've never made a quilt before, fabric choice is important. I would go with 100% cotton. The polycottons stretch and, you know, they don't lie very well when you're sewing. 100% cotton is perfect. If you're cutting up clothes, try and keep to 100% cotton. The other thing that I would say, if you've never done this before, is when you're cutting your fabric, I would suggest using a rotary cutter, like one of these. Don't use your paper one. Use one that is kept just for fabric. They are sharp, so be careful. The other good thing is to have one of these rulers. These are quilters' rulers. A lot of us paper crafters use these because of the measurements on them. It's very easy using your cutting mat and a ruler to line things up. You know, you can get nice straight lines. Just matching up the lines on your board to the lines on these rulers. So when you're cutting your 2.5-inch strips, what I would suggest, and I'll use this piece of fabric to show you, what I would suggest is press your fabric first, get the edges together, properly together, and start by cutting what you, sorry about that, that was noisy. Start lining up the crease on your board and cutting a nice straight edge. So if I went in 1/4 of an inch there and married up, it's actually the 5 1/4 inch strip line. There's the 5, so 5 1/4. If I cut along there, so long as these are straight, your edges are straight, along as straight as you can get them along there, just cut away from you along that line, and that will give you a nice straight line to work from. And then when you do your 2 1/2 inch strips, use your ruler and line up the 2 1/2 inch mark on the edge of your fabric. And I would also suggest lining up these lines so that you know that you've got it 100%, and trim your piece. And that means that you start with a proper 2 1/2 inch strip. And the same will apply when you cross cut those strips to give you a 2 1/2 inch square. So that's a 2 1/2 inch square there. And having a 2 1/2 inch square, you're going to lose 1/4 of an inch of that fabric all the way around. 1/4 inch here, 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 and here. Okay, that's your seam allowance. So once you've joined your fabric pieces up, you'll end up with a 2 inch square. Okay, so your 2 1/2 inches becomes a 2 inch square. And the next thing you need to, I think, makes it easy. When you're joining your strips, I piece them. I join mine. I'll put 2 pieces of fabric together and join them here, and then keep stitching. Don't cut your thread off. Then do the next 2 pieces. Keep stitching, do your next 2 pieces. And here what I've done is I've literally done these 2, then these 2, and then joined the 4 together here. Okay, you could do it that way. I just, because I wasn't sure what size I was going to need, I've gone down this way. So this will be the length. That's the width across. The other thing is that when you join your strips, so that's a strip there joined, finger press all the seams that you join facing in the same direction. So here, if you look at this, ignore all this other fabric, but if you look at this, you'll see, I should show it on here, shouldn't I? You basically press all your pieces facing in the same direction, and you can finger press those and they will stay well enough to sew. And then each row, as you work them, you press those in the opposite direction. So this row is facing down, all the joins. The next row, the joins will be facing up, and then down and then up. So you alternate. And the reason for doing that is that when you come to join your strips together, like this way, you will find it much easier to get your squares, the lines to meet, if you can nestle these 2 joined seams together. So you see here, one's up, one's down, and they actually sit really well together. So when you're sewing down this row, it's quite easy to have those. I actually pin mine as I go. Pin mine just so that I know those seams are sitting nicely together. Okay, so that's how I do it. Other people might tell you different, but that works for me. So I've got one more row to join on here, and it goes that way around. So my last row, the joining seams were facing up, so this one need to face down. So I will just finger press them all down. This last square was very creased, but it is 2.5 inches. I've double checked that. So they're now all facing in the right direction. So you pop them onto this side, like so. I'm just going to grab some pins. And then what I do is I just go along and make sure they're all pinned, all sitting nicely together. Put a pin in and move down. Put a pin in and move down. Now your seams for these should be true 1/4 inch seam. To get it really accurate, try and stick to that 1/4 inch, because a couple of threads can make a huge difference. And if I'm bothered, I'll sit my pieces together and actually pencil draw a line at a 1/4 inch. And then I know it's going to be right. So now I'll go to the machine and stitch that, flip it over, and the same will apply for these seams here. I want those to sit in opposite directions. So this seam will sit towards the left. Okay, once it's finished, once it's sewn in, it will sit tucked towards this side. And I'm looking at that and I've added those wrong. Oh dear. Don't be afraid of reverse quilting. That one should be there like that. So I've added these two wrong. So hey ho, I'll just unpick that piece. My best piece of quilting equipment is this, an unpicker. I'd be lost. I think I've got about 4 of these in different work baskets. So yes, we just unpick and then swap it around and it's ready to go. If I'd have laid this down before I started, I'd have picked that, and this would have been straightforward, wouldn't it? Right, what did I say? That needs to be that way round. Okay, so it needs to be joined on here. Now, well, it gives me a chance to show you what I'm talking about. So onto there, marry your ends together and just stitch that down. Okay, I'm going to go and do that, and then I will come back and show you my next step. Okay, so that's my piece all joined together, and I've also pressed it now, just with a dry iron. I've got a little craft iron up here that I use. So that's all joined together, and I went back through that box and I found this piece, which is just the perfect size. So I'm going to use that for the inside, I think. What I plan to do is We turn this over. I've got a piece of iron-on interfacing, a bit creased. I'm going to attach that to the back of my pieced piece of fabric. Iron that in place, and that will add a bit of thickness. And then I've got to decide, I've got a couple of ideas and I'm not sure which. I could use an envelope, the big brown envelope. I was wondering about using some bubble wrap in between, so I would attach that behind there. Would still be quite floppy. I could, in place of that, I could use some tissue. Just gives it that nice crinkly sound. Yeah, I don't know, I haven't decided yet. I might go and try and find an envelope. Just looking to see which is the right way around for this. Oh, I think it was that way. I'm going to go away, make up my mind what I'm going to do, and I will be back. Oh, before I go, look what else I found. This is an applique piece I've obviously worked on. Could have been, I can't remember what it was for. It may have been a block in a quilt. There may be more pieces to go around here. Could have been part of a cushion cover. Honestly can't say. It was done some years ago when my colours were more these sort of earthy tones. But you can be sure I'm going to use that now I've found it. Don't know where, what I'll do with it, but I will do something. Okay, I'm going to go and sort this out and I'll be back. That's on. And what I've done, I pressed it on and then I've sewn. And I've, what they call stitched in the ditch, I've sewn down this way on each of those squares. And now I'm thinking of using this, which is an Amazon bag. And it's obviously it's paper. But it's got the bubble wrap inside. And I'm wondering, I've got some spray adhesive. I might spray that to the back like so, and then add my other fabric, which is this piece, flip it over, add this piece the right way around to the back. I'll have to trim all this down once it's on, and then over sew on my machine all round the edge. That's what I'm thinking at the moment. We'll see how that goes. But the next thing will be to spray this and attach it to my piece. Okay, so that's glued to this paper envelope, and now I've trimmed it all down, and now what I've decided is to go with this piece of fabric, which is slightly wider, and I didn't want to chance, because of the thickness of the envelope, I just was a bit unsure. Is this directional? Kind of is. That's up. Okay. So now what I've got to do is add this piece of fabric to the back and stitch all around. And when I say stitch, I will probably do a quick running stitch all round on the machine, and then I will oversew all the edges all the way around. So that way it's too thick, I feel, to successfully do it the other way, which would be to put the right sides together and then turn it round. Turn it through so that sits on the back. You'd have to top stitch all the way around as well. So I'm going to do it this way, and hopefully that will work. Reasonably even, although that will be on the inside, but it would be nice. And actually what I might do is, because so far I've just stitched in the ditch this way, I might go through and do it this way before I overlock all the edges, and that will attach this piece of fabric. I'm just not sure at the minute whether that's a good idea or not. So I will go and have a think, trim off the excess of this, and I'll show it you completed. Okay, so I'm back. I have oversewn all the way around. And as you can see, I've just popped some papers in to show you what it will look like. These aren't the papers that will fit in there, but it's a wraparound, and I will probably, haven't decided yet, I'll probably sew in the signatures. And I found some leather I had this years. I bought it in the UK, Liverpool. And I thought, perfect, that will make a great closure. And I'm not going to trim it until I know the size. Now, that buckle is actually a brooch. My friend gives me all sorts of odd bits of jewellery that she finds around the place. And she gave me this brooch. She said, I thought you might be able to use it. Perfect. So it's on there and it's locked quite steady, so that's good. And as I say, I will trim that when I know exactly what size I need. I'm thinking it's going to be, won't be huge at this stage, she says. But I'm thinking it will be something like that, 2 signatures. And I'll show you odd bits. That's the inside. I did stitch up and down along here. And I oversewed around a couple of times just to be sure that I'd got it. And there will be some fraying probably, but it won't come undone. There's enough oversewing around there for it to be fine. And I mean, basically, if you made it the right size, then you could just add your closure in the ends here, sew them in as you go. Actually, it'd be quite difficult with the oversewing, but you'd get round that. And then just have it, as a normal folder. But say I wanted a wraparound, and I'm thinking it will be around that size. And it makes for a nice folder. I've got some other bits and bobs in amongst the jewellery findings. I found some other bits that I might add, but that's for later on. I just thought I'd show you that today. A bit of a change from the everyday journal. I mean, if that journal gets too full, I might use this one for the next section. I'm not sure at the moment what I'm going to use it for. But I found that fabric and thought, oh yeah, that'd be lovely. Use up those 2-inch squares. So that's it. That's my share for today. I hope you like that. And I will show you once I've got the pages all sorted. I haven't quite decided what I'm going to do. I'll show it you all complete. Okay, thanks so much for calling round today. The light's going. I've got lights on, so there are lots of shadows. Sorry about that. Okay, I'm off. I'll see you in the next video. Bye now.